I feel like our next presenter needs no introduction. If you've been in this business for any amount of time, hopefully you've had a chance to encounter Smarking. They have given a series of brilliant presentations during the course of this pandemic, giving us terrific analysis and clear vision on what was happening within our industry and where it seemed to be going at the time. Joining us today is CEO Wen Sang. Wen went to a little charm school on the other side of the river called MIT. He got a PhD in mechanical engineering and cut his teeth in the Sloan Automotive Lab. And he is joined by his two associates, Jeanette Choi and Devin Tiariaco. Please welcome Smarking.
Thank you, Eddie, for your very special introduction. Really appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. Excited to be here back in the main town, and thank you all for coming out. We all know that last year was a rough year for all of us. The pandemic essentially threw all of us off the balance. A lot of things are coming back this year. Things are slowly but surely recovering. While we see things are coming back to normal, certain things are just to a certain extent fundamentally changed. One of them, in our observation, being the possible change of how people get to work, how people work and how people get to work. So called the commuter patterns. So today we're very excited to share some of the observations here, and we'd love to learn from everybody what have been your observations or some of the perspectives that you have, and have a discussion about it. So, sorry. All right. So again, Andy gave me a very special introduction. Wen, CEO of Smarking. We're a San Francisco-based technology company. We started business since 2015. Actually started from Boston here. We have Boston roots. And today we work with many good people just like yourself, from municipalities, universities, hospitals, commercial real estate, parking management companies. And what we do is we enable good people like yourself to take advantage of the parking data, turn them into actionable insights, do dynamic pricing. And we also build a third platform, cater to the commuter, new commuter pattern. Happy to talk later. Today I have my colleague Jeanette Choi, our product manager here, as well as Devin, our accounting customer success manager, who's covering the New England area. So we prepared 3 parts for our session today. First, we're going to share a little bit with everybody what has been the observation from a data standpoint from both parking and some other perspectives when it comes to mobility, what we have been seeing coming into 2021. Beyond that, we're going to talk a little bit about our understanding of what this means to us when it comes to commuter behavior pattern shift and when it comes to its impact to the parking issue. At the end, we'll share a little bit of the thoughts of our recommendation, but again, most importantly, we'd love to hear from everybody what you're seeing, what you think, what is working, what is not, what we should pay attention to, and so on. Without further ado, I would ask my colleague Jeanette here to share with us from a data standpoint what is happening.
Thank you, Wen, and good morning, everyone. So as Wen mentioned, we're going to take a look into the market recovery data in parking, and then going on to the new mobility patterns that we observed in 2021. So starting off, Smarking is very lucky to be working with 2,500 sites across the country, and really getting all this data and showing you guys building off our industry benchmark and really seeing how everything is compared from 2021 to 2019. So here what you see is the North American data, off-peak data, where we see both monthly and transient transactions and the trajectory of how it has been recovering since the beginning of this year. As you can tell, things were going up relatively quickly since January up until May, and then as everything has opened back up, again, new cases actually coming out again. We do see that curve flatten out at around, now we're down still about 25% compared to 2019. Taking a a closer look into breaking it down by monthly and transient data, you can tell at the beginning of this year, transient parking transactions were down actually a lot more than how our monthly partners were coming back in. And then as a lot of things open back up, we can see that our transient recovery is actually going a lot quicker than how our monthly parking recovery is looking. And this, from what we see, is high likelihood that a lot of our monthly parkers are actually converting to transient parkers. So this is why we see that trajectory moving a lot quicker and monthly parkers actually flattening out near the past few months. All right, so since we're in Boston, we're going to take a closer look into the Boston metro area. Very, very similar to what we see across North America, except Boston is going on an even quicker trajectory in transient parking. As you can see, in our last month in July, we are already back to 100% of where we were at in 2019, but monthlies are still falling behind, going down, still down 65%. And Chicago shows an even bigger gap right here. We can see, again, the transient parking is going up a lot quicker. Again, reiterating that same point that a lot of transient parkers may have shifted from monthly parkers, and this is why we see that curve slowing down on the monthly parker recovery side. And last but not least, we're going to take a look into our West Coast. Looking at LA Metro, we can tell this is a very slightly different pattern. Looks like we may never recover as monthly and transient parkers are both still down very significantly, and in July, and at nearly the same point, down about 50% for both monthly and transient parkers. So before we actually jump into how we see these new mobility patterns, I want to ask you guys, are you guys seeing the same pattern across your parking operations in terms of like monthly and transients? Pretty similar, right? So yeah, it's the same thing with what we're seeing. Really great to hear that we're seeing the same patterns going forward. And then diving into how there's new mobility patterns that are coming into 2021, I'm going to first talk about public transportation. So we can tell a lot of sources that are telling us public transportation may actually never, it will take like a long time to recover. So you can tell at the beginning of the pandemic in March 2020, actually 48% of Americans say that it's very unsafe for them to be riding public transit because of how close proximity everyone is, and also there's just a lot of surface contact that everyone is sharing. And a study with MBTA, you can take a look at the chart right there to the right, and the gray line shows 2020 ridership data, and the blue line shows 2021 ridership data. So you can tell in Q1 of 2021, we are still 30% behind where we were at pre-pandemic. So things are going right really slow, and you can tell that curve is not accelerating anytime soon. Very, very flat road. And in a recent post by Washington, in a recent article under Washington Post, we see that they actually mentioned that the pandemic era commute might be changed forever. So public transit and people commuting is going to have a very, very different pattern going forward. All right. So the next industry that we're going to take a look at is rideshare. So rideshare is still down 50% from a study with AAA. They said that within the other 5,000 respondents, that 5.5% of those respondents were actually using rideshare before the pandemic. Once the pandemic hit, that number plummeted to 1.7%, and still to this day, we're still not even 50% where we were at before the pandemic, at 2.4%. So you can tell in the chart, this is the Uber's gross bookings by segment quarterly. So you can tell that coming up before the pandemic in the blue bar, you can tell that is we can tell that this is how the rideshare industry is functioning. So at the peak in February, we see that we were at $12 billion, and it plummeted here. Still, right now, only about half of where we were at in this recent quarter. And you can tell very, very different story with Uber Eats. Everyone's ordering food throughout the pandemic, last contact with everyone. That business is going right back up. All right, so we're going to talk about the workforce commute landscape. This has definitely shifted. We see a new study with JLL where they had a workplace experience survey. There were a lot of concerns around, is it safe to get back into work? Is the building going to be cleaned every so often? and by how many people are going to be coming back? How do I safely actually get to work? There were so many concerns over that. So we actually saw a proportion of respondents that want to work from home only about 2 days of the week, doubled during that time in the pandemic compared to pre-pandemic. So we were already see there's a preference toward that hybrid workforce. A lot of employers are also choosing to not use their office space and really give their employees the comfort of working from home, because many times when we see there's been a proven model that this is working for many companies, and they would also prefer that their employees stay within that same tenant as well. So while we have discussed how monthly parking is really recovering a lot slower than transient parking, and the workforce is shifting in this new landscape, how does this really affect us in terms of parking? So I'm going to pass this off to my colleague Devin to speak a little bit more on that.
Awesome, thank you, Jeanette. So yes, we've gone over what we're seeing. We've gone over what the data shows. But what impact has that had, and what impact will that continue to have? So, as we mentioned, this is going to have an impact on the commuter behavior landscape shift moving forward. We've already seen it, and what's happening moving forward isn't stopping. So, taking into consideration the study that we shared from JLL and other data that we pulled, pre-COVID, 75% of the workforce was actually commuting to the office every single day. But now, post-COVID, 50% of that 75% are doing more of a flexible hybrid work schedule. What does that mean? What that means is the people who were previously paying for a full monthly, who aren't actually coming in for a full monthly's worth of parking, aren't looking to pay for that. And you're going to lose monthly parkers, and have lost monthly parkers, I'm sure, due to that churn. So because of that, there's a lot of challenges. Obviously, you lose monthly parkers, you lose revenue. The demand goes down for monthly parkers as they churn. You also lose that customer loyalty when they were previously signed up for recurring payments to come in every day of the week, as opposed to now where they're like, oh, I'm only coming in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Now they're, like Jeanette mentioned earlier, a lot of monthlies are switching to transient and pulling tickets, which also is just a lot more inconvenient on their end as well. But even with those challenges, there's also new opportunities. And with that opportunities, there's new demand for flexible parking. People who actually just want to pay for the days they're coming in. They're not foregoing the office altogether, but they still want to have the option to work from home. With that being said, though, we have to ask ourselves, is the existing technology that's there right now ready to basically take on that new demand? And what we're seeing is, though this isn't across the board, for most clients that we work with, there's both a siloed transaction between the access and billing systems. The parks systems aren't speaking to the payment systems. The sign-up process, you have to do a lot of paper pushing, or if someone didn't pay their AR bills for 6 months, but they still have access to the garage. People are still relying on proxy cards and Excel spreadsheets. Right now, across the board, it kind of seems like most people can't handle a flexible parking option. And there's a real opportunity here to regain that new demand in the new workforce that's coming out. With all that being said, I will actually pass this back along to Wen, who has some recommendations that we would like to share based on these findings, and would also like to get all of your thoughts as well. So.
All right, thanks, Devin. 18 minutes in, we're 2/3 done, guys. So far, before we jump into the recommendations, any thoughts, comments? Are these the problems, pain points that anyone is observing as well? Or this is like, wow, we don't have to worry about that. What are some of the observations from anyone? Go ahead, please, Terry.
That is the city of Lowell. That what we're seeing now, we have a couple of big banks in the city. Their employees are coming back 2 days a week, maybe, into the office. And so they're coming back to the city saying they want to break on parking. We're so cheap now, they're down to $4 a day. I'm trying to figure out what more I can do. If they paid on the 2 days a week at over a month, that would be more than what they're paying now. So, I'm trying to figure out what I will do with them and what I'll have to do with other companies in the city if they want to have their employees in 2 days a week. So I don't have the equipment that can manage that. And, so that's what I'm facing right now, which is exactly what you talked about today and what we talked about last night.
Thank you, Terry. I just got to know Terry yesterday, you guys. So
I'm not a paid right now. We just met last night.
big thanks to NEPC for making it happen. But yeah, so I would only know that Terry is not the only one. We work with so many municipalities, so many universities, hospitals, commercial real estate owners. They all get phone calls. Although we see in the news, the timeline got pushed. Amazon said they're going to push it to January to bring everybody back. Some of the companies in San Francisco Bay Area say, yeah, do whatever you want, permanent, remote. But that is not going to be the case across the board. People like to get in person, just like how we're doing it today. And the problem is, as we just talked it through, we're not ready. We're not ready. If people make those phone calls, we want to accommodate them, it's going to be a disaster. If we want to handle things, just letting people walk in, give me this permit, give me that permit, I want my own permit, I want customization, that won't work. So how do we go from here? So some of the initial thoughts that we put together is, on one hand, let's not freak out. Let's really start with listen to the partners, listen to people. Okay, what do you really need and why do you need that? Really understand, okay, do you need in and out privilege? What is the most important thing for you? Is it cheaper because you wanted a price break? Or is it that you wanted your tenant group, let's say banks, HR admin, to not have to worry about handling 200 people's different demand or requests? What is the most important thing for you? And then really understand what are the particular needs. At the same time, we believe it is also important to understand your team's needs, right? What do your team need to make this really work? Today, we understand it probably takes so much paper pushing to really get the sign-on process going. That's a pain. And then, at the same time, when it comes to the account receivables, oh my God, just how can we have an opportunity to just get rid of that for all at once? So all of these pain points, all of these challenges, we believe there is value to really understand it from your staff as well. Based on all of these information that we gathered, our recommendation is, look, the world is a different one now. We can't anticipate to solve the new problem with what we just had for 20 years. We gotta be open. We gotta be thinking, okay, what's out there? Let's embrace some new technologies. Let's look at, okay, who's offering what? What is available? Explore. Go proactive on it. Because the volume may have not hit right now yet. It's gonna hit either by Labor Day or October or January. You're getting phone calls. So let's get started right now. Understand the needs from partners, your team, start exploring technologies on the market, and then really honing in and then craft out of that solution. So from the technology provider's perspective, I'll be honest that I know a lot of folks are also scratching their head. Okay, what can we do? That is the thing. So this is the opportunity for you to reach out to the technology provider and say, hey, this is what I need. Can you do this? Make those requests. Help them to understand what are the problems and then shape the future together. That's our recommendation. You have that opportunity now. So with, let's say, a few months down, coming to 2022, our hope is with all of these efforts, with your true understanding of what the problem is, with the collaboration, let's say, among everybody in the industry, we see a different world where not only we can capture those new demands when the banks call you up, say, hey, we have 200 people to handle it, or say we never paid for parking for employees, but now we wanted to bring them back. We understand people still have concerns about public transportation. They don't want to take Uber. We wanted to help them out. We wanted to pay for, kind of all of their parking passes or part of it. Can you guys help? We want you to be able to tell them, yes, no problem. We figured it out. Because for your partners, with something implemented, wanted you to be able to come in and tell the citizens, tell the clients, say, hey, the partners will come in with all the flexibilities that they want, but they do things on their phone, self-serve. You don't have to manage it. No one needs to manage it. Let's say the technology figures it out. Okay? Everybody pays their due. recurring, automatic, you don't have to worry about it. And then people can scan in, scan out for gated locations, supposedly for open service lots, same thing, nothing changes, but enforcement can be taken care of in a rather automatic and self-service manner. On the management side, no more all of those, headaches when it comes to people complaining, okay, I can't get what I want. You customize your own thing. You decide, do you want to come in on Monday, Tuesdays, Thursday, Fridays? You make changes on your phone. And then, voila, everything's just taken care of by the technology. And all the folks in the industry need to do is basically give different people the deals that they should have, right? Here's the program for you, go, Bank of Enterprise. Here's the deal for you, all citizens of Volvo. And for the equity programs, you should be able to craft that as well, right? We can create special programs through technologies just to provide it. That is the dream. That is supposedly how the new world should look like, in our view. Same thing, payment, recurring, automatic, no one needs to think about it. AR is in our work progress, obviously. AR is a painful task. Let's not spend time on sending an invoice, chasing it again. Let's check if someone paid. Come on, put in the corporate payment information. We can do ACH, no problem. You can tell them that. And then boom, get it done. No one needs to think about anything. At the end of the day, integrate that access and billing. Someone wanted to cancel the program, cancel it, and then boom, everything taken care of. There shouldn't be that 4 steps process of calling people up, scratch names off the spreadsheets, fix up the gate and everything. Should be all get automated. So that is our recommendation. And yeah, days go early, so let's have a discussion. What do you guys think? Any thoughts? And feel free to reach out. Our contact information there for more discussion. But yeah, this is. Go ahead, please.
Great presentation. Thank you so much. But this is something that's trolled me, and I want to get your perspective on it. A lot of the surveys that talk about adoption from work from home are based on surveys of employees and what would you like. I have not seen a lot of feedback yet from employers. What will you tolerate?
Yeah.
And up until a couple of months ago, it seemed like the whole world was going to go to work from home. And I think it was Jamie Dimon was being interviewed by the Wall Street Journal.
Yes.
And they asked him, what did you think? And he said, I want butts back in the seats as quickly as possible. And immediately thereafter, all the Wall Street firms sort of lined up behind him.
Yeah.
Here in the city of Boston, we are girding ourselves for what may be the biggest game of musical chairs on the day after Labor Day the city has ever seen, as people get called back in. So if you see any data on, I know what employees would like to do, I'm curious to know what employers are going to allow for, because I think the middle ground is going to be where we actually end up on this.
Yeah, I totally hear you, Andy, and I think, we don't have holistic data on how the world has moved so far when it comes to returning to the office. We have anecdotes so far, but I'm sure it'll come out as how we'll see some data. From what we're seeing, to your point, these big employers, they have influence beyond their own companies. As you said, when Jamie said, okay, everybody butts back in the seat, that influenced how the finance industry think about things. Right now, there are also examples like, I think it was LinkedIn, said forever, permanent. There are also people saying, Google basically said, originally, I think this was back in June, saying that, okay, by September, come back, but you have an option to be hybrid. You can negotiate with your direct manager, 2-3 days, whichever days that work for you, that is the model. So we do believe in the influence of these major corporations, how they do things. It'll obviously impact how many others think about it. So we believe in that. But just seeing how these different companies are saying different things, I would agree with what you said. It's going to be mixed. It's going to be mixed. Yeah. And what is important, which also is our main calling today, is it's different. No one talks about this before pandemic. Who would bring this up as a topic? Everybody goes to work. But now, people not only talk about it, but the major corporations are representing their viewpoints in such a diverse manner. clear away anyway. So yeah, the world is different. We've got new problems, new opportunities, and our recommendation is don't put head in the sand. Let's just face it, know that it's going to be different. Go after the potential solutions. Go after the problems first. Go after the problems first. Understand what's really happening. What do people really need from the customer side, from your team's perspective, and then go from there. Do not wait. Please go ahead. Raise your hand.
Do you foresee, do you foresee any issues with inventory? I can envision a scenario where people are coming back to work, they're shy on public transit,
Yes.
they're coming back in an unstructured 2 days a week, nobody on a Friday,
Yes.
right? And now we've got these surges of cars coming in that the system wasn't really designed for, really.
Yes.
People don't want to get back on a train or a ferry or a bus.
That's a great question, Chris. So when you, just to clarify, when you say inventory, you mean inventory of the parking garages?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very fair question. So even before the pandemic, this is, I'll talk about two perspectives here. One is, statistically speaking, if we're talking about peak occupancy of parking structures, we actually did a data scan for 1,000 commercial locations back in 2016. This was way before. We looked at throughout the full week at peak occupancy across all the parking garages, how the peak occupancy has been throughout the day. And we discovered that while there are absolutely cases where their capacity over 100%, which is you basically putting cars in between the lanes and whatnot, but there is also cases where near 1/3, about 30% at their peak throughout the whole week, it's less than 50% full. So it's not evenly distributed. And if we pull out, I don't want to do that placement here, but if we pull out this market industry benchmark, you can see across the board, even before the pandemic, the peak occupancy, in average, if we do the average, it's like 60 or so %. So our major point is, across the US, parking facilities are being underutilized. That's just it. Now, how do we, so that's one thing. And if we flip it, basically the reality is we're oversupplied. We're oversupplied. Now, how do we, so it's, the problem is never that we don't have enough infrastructure. The problem is how to a certain extent, I'm not saying, for Boston, I know there's Clean Air Act, you can't build new structures, whatnot. New York, absolutely, there's no space, that is the case. But there are levers to pull to essentially impact inventory, which we believe in dollar-ship theory. Human beings are very, I know that I would go to a cheaper option if everything is equal. So when it comes to inventory management, pricing is a very important lever. So a lot of clients reach out to us and say, hey guys, if we put the technology in place, can you guys help us to make sure that Monday, Fridays, people are like, nah, no, I'm not gonna go to the office. Tuesday, Wednesdays, make it more expensive. So essentially, each parking location is different. We understand that. But for people to optimize it to, let's say, the golden 85% occupancy, you have ways to do it. Sorry for the long-winded. Please.
My question actually builds upon that same topic. And maybe New York and San Francisco are just outliers, or maybe there's a population level within certain cities or the way the city is constructed. But do you see a conflicting interest in city employers that are looking to bring people back in and have them in their garages, but at the same time, a city like New York or San Francisco is now saying we're going to go after congestion pricing because we would be driving people back to. So you have a large municipality, and again, I realize that New York and San Francisco might be the outliers.
Yeah.
But are you seeing any elements of differentiation between populations, city populations? Does that make sense? About how these levers are going?
Mm-hmm. So if I understand correctly, your question is for different sites or different types of cities, are they considering handling this the same way or in different ways? Is that correct?
A bit, but also is there a challenge where you were saying, employers are looking to get people back in their garages.
Yes.
They're trying to get them back in the office, so they're offering these opportunities.
Yes.
But then you do have and I don't know if it's more holistic or just the outliers in New York and San Francisco, where they're going, We don't want people driving back in, so we're gonna charge them surge pricing, which almost goes against what the employers are looking to do.
I hear you. Yeah, it is, in our view, that situation exactly is convoluted, and in our view, it's not well thought out when it comes to what's the problem, what's the solution, does the solution solve this problem? So that's our view. So essentially, if we go one level deeper, when it comes to the employer's intent to bring the workforce back, they want to create that work environment where it's productive. That's their goal, right? They want to enable the environment where people can actually have an opportunity to get together, get stuff done. It's like how we're doing it here, which is, 1 day support with so many Zoom costs. But to a certain extent, we also believe cities will want businesses to come back. They would want those workforce to, go have lunch and throughout the day. See the shows come into the city. We will believe in that. Now, we believe the problem, if we break it down, is two completely separate problems. One, everybody wants prosperity. Everybody wants the cities to be vibrant. That is perfectly aligned between the employers and the cities. There's no conflict there. The other problem is, it's you pointed out, is congestion. It's the traffic. It's cars circling around. That is a completely different objective. The people no one likes sitting in traffic. That's a completely different problem than the other problem. So our view is we solve each problem separately and differently, instead of just slamming on congestion price and then just discourage everybody from coming to the city. Our view is consumers like us, we want options. We want options that work for us. And our view is business, let's say parking service providers, like pretty much so many people in the industry, our job is not to say, don't do this, don't do that. Instead, we should say, okay, let's see what are some other options we can come up with to really make everybody happy. If you look at the history of human, our demand has always been increasing. That's why the GDP is going up every year across the world. So it's about creating more optionalities, more experience, instead of just saying, don't do this, don't do that. It's our view. So when it comes to how to really solve those two different problems separately, our belief is don't do cookie cutter. Really understand, okay, so for us to bring back the workforce, what are options we could provide? We believe in flexibility model is what we want. Even for employers, not necessarily for every employer, but certain employers, if they want to compete for talent, they gotta be thought in a way. So that is one perspective of it. Now, from a service provider's perspective, how do we really make it work? Donald Trump said, near 30% of on-street traffic is parking insertion, right? What we really want is we don't want cars on the street. They can be in the garage, push them out to the garage ASAP. How to do that? Our view is push out down-street pricing. And then just help also lower the off-street parking pricing at the right times. And then push the folks off the street, getting into the garages. That is our.
So sort of building on that, one of the other reasons to do this, which I think the keynote speaker yesterday referred to, is to give people options to take transit one day and drive another day depending on their needs. We've been looking at that for a while. One of the issues that's come up with the private commercial parking is the employer's HR systems are also not up to the task of sort of doing this more dynamic kind of benefit process, and making sure they get the right tax break, et cetera, et cetera.
Yes.
Have you seen I'm curious if you've seen any better integration or flexibility on that side, and also integration with the types of parking control technology that you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I understand the question accurately, you're saying, let's say people want flexibility, optionality, how do you make that happen? Is that the?
Well, a lot of times, yes, and a lot of times the payment for this, even if the employee is paying, it's through payroll deduction.
Yes.
So it's not just a parking technology question, it's an HR
Yes.
technology question,
Yes.
and an integration between the two. And so I guess I'm really saying that you've seen that start to happen.
Yeah.
Because in our experience in Cambridge, that's been the other barrier. It's not just the parking side,
Yes.
but also the HR people are like, I don't want to deal with this. It's
Yes.
complicated.
Exactly.
My systems aren't set up for it.
Yes. That's a great point, and I think you said it. It's not just it impacts everybody. It impacts HR, impacts so that's where when it comes to okay, what does the team need? You can't ignore their pain points. So I would say the short answer is the world is just getting started figuring this out. No one has a complete solution saying, oh, we have it all figured out because things are still evolving. But the important thing in our view is understand the true pain points of the team, understand the true pain point of the employer's needs, and then start looking for solutions out there. So several elements, as I mentioned in the last slide, that we've gathered in terms of what people want from the management or the staff's need perspective. Exactly. If everybody has their customized the parking programs, how would we manage it from an HR standpoint? Who's going to pay for that? How is it going to? So that is absolutely a very worthwhile problem to solve in our view. So there gotta be people out there trying to solve this problem. Find them.
Well, yeah, I would say to you, getting into discussions like with all the third-party benefit providers that are out there is really important.
Yes. There are a lot of amazing technology providers out there. I mean, two people here, like David, Sam from Parkwood, they do amazing stuff themselves as well. So yeah, I would say everybody's exploring, everybody's questioning, everybody's asking a question. So I think the discussion should happen. Yeah. Unload all your pain points to all of these folks. Yeah. Any other thoughts, comments, questions? Please, go ahead, please, yeah. We got time.
I was just curious, the other aspect of this to me is that, if you start talking about not having monthly parkers but more transient, you may, there's a revenue risk, right? Because those, someone parks every day and pays transient, that's great because they're paying me even more than my monthly, but my monthly is like I'm paying on it. So I can see some reluctance to let those people out of their monthly credit. I'm curious if you've seen any data or any analysis of, and I know it's early, so it's maybe another question of how does it balance out revenue-wise? Or, do you wind up losing money, making more money? Obviously, we're also losing money now, so maybe it doesn't matter.
So from a perspective, from a viewpoint perspective, our view is thinking about that is just turning to the short-term thinking in a way. This is coming. There's no way that it is not. But technically, we're not saying, okay, medium, we're to everybody in flexible. That doesn't fit the needs either. As Andy said, Jamie from JP Morgan said, everybody back. That is not the solution for that group. Absolutely. So we're not saying immediately just turn this on for everybody. That is one approach. What we're saying is when it comes to back to the original question, when it comes to the potential revenue losses, we got to be realistic when it comes to what we're trying to solve. Besides the simple short-term pricing perspective, there's also the volume. If you're losing the monthly parkers, clients still has more than 50% of monthly parking share. We did see in a lot of their locations, the transit parking during 8 hours and 12 hours jumped out. That part of the recovery is a lot faster than the monthly side. But we got to ask them the question, why? Why did people do that? And then you get the answers, well, there are no other options. I don't have a solution. I had to pull a ticket every day. I hated it. I wanted in and out privilege. I wanted to go out to lunch and then I don't have to pay again. But I'm not going to pay that, $300-400 a month. I had to do it because I have to come into the office. I love the office. No screaming kids. This is original post. So people have the needs, and it is, in my view, our job to figure it out, not to say, oh, run through transit, that's it. So yeah, our view is let's be long-term thinking. Let's try to focus on providing value, optionality, and figure it out. And then the money will come around. Absolutely, the money will come around because all of a sudden, if you pick up head, and then everybody else, they have full monthly, flexible, they have transient, and you only have monthly transient. The people are not going to come to your location if that is the case. Yeah, please.
I know you talked about the divide between recovery on the transit side and recovery on the monthly side here. Have you had an ability to sort of isolate and analyze what the impact of price changes or price manipulation has been, and has there been widespread price manipulation in order to start bringing those people back in?
So, and let me make sure I understand the question. You're saying, has there been observation of, let's say, parking facilities changing pricing in order to encourage people to come back?
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic, we talk about dynamic pricing as a way to distribute overburdening on
Yes.
particular assets. But it works the other way too.
Yeah.
If you want to start bringing people back in, you theoretically lower the price. I guess what I'm asking is, you've got over 1,000 locations. Have you seen widespread use of operators or owners saying, yeah, we're gonna drop our prices and try and capture the market as it returns?
Yeah, so that's a great question, Andy, and it's not easy to answer for sure. So, truth to be told, when it comes to people call it board rates and what actually happens in transactions, those are two different things.
Okay.
So that's one. Two is when it comes to how, let's say, parking operator folks think about this. Yeah, I mean, that is completely location by location, company by company, in a way that people would try to do doing things, but honestly, to our very blunt observation, most people are just, okay, now what, no changes, essentially. And then when people come up with changes, it's hard to measure what's the impact and how, is this right or not? It's hard to decipher what really has been, the impact of the pricing changes. So in general, even before pandemic, our view is we believe people should do more experiments, people should collect more data to really understand what's going on when we make certain changes, but that has not been happening as much as often. We believe it is a working model, but to make that work, we believe it got to be made a lot easier for people to do that instead of, if we're a bunch of numbers on Excel spreadsheet trying to understand impact of one buck out for a particular rate, that's going to be painful. So, and because of that, and everybody's putting out fires. So the net result of that is all we got fires. But we believe that's the right direction to go with the right support resources put in place. Please, go ahead.
Sorry, on the transit side, there's been this movement towards, like in London with the Oyster card, and you can use it on a paper ride, and then it caps out once you hit the sort of, you spend as much as it would have been for a weekly or monthly.
Yes.
Is there any movement on the parking side to do that? So basically, you would,
Yes.
once you get to the monthly cost, then you won't pay any more or something like that.
Yeah. We've seen certain, or even here in Boston, certain folks who operate locations, they would say there's a credit card on file, freedom plan. You pay per use. You get $1 down from the daily max or something, but you just got to use that same card every time, swipe it.
Yep.
And there are flexibility other programs like this. But yeah, every optionality, every program has its pros and cons. And yeah, our belief is create those opportunities, try it out, see if it will work for you. Something work for others may not necessarily work for you, but our belief is try and error. That's our recommendation. Yeah, try things out. Any other thoughts, comments, anything? Okay.
I don't know, this is more of a theoretical.
Go ahead.
You guys, you sit at it from a unique vantage point because you see the macro data, right? Region, country, city, what have you. And when we talk about, these strategies and tactics of how do we improve, how do we address a certain problem? So if I'm on the operator side and I own an asset and my focus is really how do I improve my little asset? Whereas if you zoom out a little bit and say you do it from City of Boston side, they're looking at their portfolio-wide assets and say, all right, we've got our on-street assets, so we want, we see our revenues down and we want to optimize that.
Yes.
But now we're talking about a much bigger macro problem we're trying to solve, right? How do we get the employees back in? Right? So I guess the bottom line is it requires a whole lot of collaboration from all different levels, right? So if we're looking out after the interests of our region, our city, I mean, it's everyone. The collaboration is required by everyone. And I'm hoping we can get there, and maybe you see some great examples in other parts of the country where you have public-private partnership, collaboration, and they're really looking at it from a I don't know, altruistic perspective and putting their self needs aside for the greater good, right? So it'd be interesting to see that level of collaboration, right? Because like what I see here in our city, for example, as we service our MBTA client, yeah, ridership took a big hit. I mean, I saw those stats.
Yes.
And that couldn't ring true on the mobile payment side too.
Yeah.
People are not driving in,
Yeah.
right? I mean, they'd rather drive in their private vehicles than get on mass transit, right? So we definitely see that.
Yeah.
So, but the positive side to that is, if car ownership is like through the roof these days, people feel safer in their own vehicles.
Yes.
That activity should transpire into the city.
Yeah.
So from the city of Boston's perspective, yeah.
What do you think, Paul?
Right?
Sounds good.
Right. And then if I own the private garages in downtown, yeah, I welcome that business, right? But it just requires just a macro intense collaboration, right? I think that's the bottom line.
Yeah, I'll share our perspectives, but also love to hear what Paul thinks. So we're a firm believer of partnership. The entire company's running being built on partnership, working with everybody. All the technology providers, all good people like yourself, cities, private sector folks. On a higher level, yeah, we believe in partnership. There are, yes, real challenges, but we see great examples as well. Can we share this? Okay. So for one example, we work with the city of Houston down in Texas. One project they initiated was they understand the city has 9,000 meters and a group of off-street, about 10 off-street locations. And the city says, what can we do to make our citizens really happy when it comes to parking? Is that just pick up the complaint from us? Okay, let's say, although the city has only one portion of the entire city's parking assets, can we work with the private sector folks to enable this visibility when it comes to availability? On one hand, the city would, to a certain extent, help out on the congestion issue. Basically, as we talked about, the entire market is oversupplied. It's not that we don't have enough space, it's that people don't know what's going on, like what's available. So the city of Houston said, let's talk with these big landlords to see if they're on board. Because from the city's perspective, we want to push people off the street, get into their garages. We don't care about making money. The city's always saying that. We don't care about making money. We just want people to be happy. And the private sector folks would say, yeah, we would love the parkers to come in. So they actually formed this project with quite a few major landlords in the Houston area. And then they leveraged technology to essentially make sure when the city shared the parking information real time or so with the citizens, they only shared information that the private sector folks wanted them to share, such as availability, not revenue, nothing else. So that has been a great example that how initiatives can be formed and how things can be done. Let's be honest, it's hard. It's not easy. For cities to have those conversations, a lot of concerns, a lot of challenges, absolutely true. But our firm belief is that the world is moving to that direction. We want to leave a mark to say years later, tell stories to our grandchildren, say, the world is different and I'm always one part of making it happen. I would say those are conversations we should initiate and explore. Yeah, definitely. Oh, what do you think? Please.
I think right now it's, the most interesting thing I thought was what we have for supply and demand. Because right now, I think that last part, throughout the pandemic, they've offered a discount for city of Boston employees to park in their garage for $15 a day. And that was great, and I think it helped a lot of city employees who probably do that. Throughout the pandemic, we were in the office the whole time. And they had, at the beginning of it, I'd find a parking spot on the 3rd or 4th floor. But now as people have slowly come back, now it's like I'm parking twice a week. Now I'm on the 6th floor. So I'm not sure where we're gonna, once everybody comes back, to your point, it's September 1st, right, after Labor Day.
where is everybody gonna go? We're already seeing people come back to the streets. The revenue's back up with the parking meters, transactions are back up almost to where they were pre-pandemic. So it's, as always, the promise of where we can put the cars.
Yeah. If you have a wish list, let's say the world goes just perfect for you from the city's perspective, you get what you really want from, let's say, all the park owners in Boston, they do this one project, what would that be in order to make everybody happy, reduce congestion, citizens are happy, you're happy, they're happy, what would that be?
Ideally, you want people riding their bikes, and you want full bike lanes, you want comfortable ridership on the T, but it's 20% across the board price increase. If you really want to meet the Commonwealth's goals and objectives for clean air initiatives and conversion, what you really want is you want for folks to either get that price increase or freeze the prices where they are and wait 6 months until I-93 is a parking lot going both ways, and people will start making other decisions after that. But if you really want to augment it, go with the price increase. The reason we have the fantastic non-single occupant vehicle road share we have in this city is because the city of Boston, very wisely, in 1975, got out of the parking business. They said, we're not going to hold rates anymore. We're going to let the market do what the market's going to do and put our money into transit, into alternative transportation. And what the market is what the market always does, which is those who can are going to go with what is most convenient and preferable, and those who want to save their money or have ulterior motives will find other ways to do that.
So yeah, that's one challenge of when it comes to actually work it out. It takes that to a certain extent supervision or even regulations to a certain extent and make sure things actually go as wanted instead of for-profit companies are just for-profit. Go ahead, please.
Did any of your research look at university parking, especially with residential institutions largely saying they're coming back and who are disincentivized from the online learning because of the experience at the customer, especially liberal arts schools, who did not feel that was a very good value, but yet they did decrease the price for that, pandemic education. Because most university parking is sold out all the time, every year. And my experience was pandemic hit, lost all kinds of money, but I suspect we're going to make all kinds of money back in September. Did any of your data look at that particular market?
Sorry, so which university you were with? What's your name?
I'm Scott. I work at Wesleyan University.
Thank you, Scott. Love Wesleyan campus. Short answer is, unfortunately, we don't have a university data set just pulled together. But if I understand your comments accurately, you're saying because of the pandemic, students basically moved away from the campus, and there is a major revenue loss from parking. Before pandemic, it was basically full. Everybody wants to park their cars, and there's always a wait list and so on. And your expectation is after the schools come back and open, the revenue is going to come up again. Yeah, I mean, again, can't really comment on from a holistic statistics standpoint, but if we're just talking here, because university is different from, to a certain extent, in our view, when it comes to, let's say, commercial buildings, when it comes to the workforce, a completely different setting, especially with the student body that is huge, and that is a major part of revenue source. Then, yeah, students look at campuses a lot of times. There are on-campus students, of course, that will come in part of it. That sounds like, yeah, it makes perfect logical sense to us.
But similar to what you were just saying about goals and objectives, most of the small universities want sustainability. They want students to bring fewer cars.
Right.
And a lot of them are making good headway in that area by raising parking prices and limiting freshman, sophomore parking, et cetera. But now with the pandemic, a lot of parents are saying, I don't want my kid taking mass transit. I don't want them coming up from New York in the train.
Yeah.
Bring his car.
Yeah.
I'm safe. So I think there's gonna be an increased pressure where we're gonna have this, this forced choice.
Yes.
And it's gonna become a political choice as well as financial.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Well,
Appreciate
yeah,
you.
just go ahead. Jack.
No, we're gonna see, at U Lowell, we're already seeing students come back, and they are flooding the neighborhoods. You know, they pay $450 a semester to park, but they're not guaranteed a spot. Okay, so they're packing the neighborhoods, moving into apartments, really rooming houses now. And 3 family, instead of having 5 or 6 cars, will have 15 cars, and they're just choking the neighborhood. So that's something that has to be addressed. We're not sure how to do that.
Are there private vendors that can help, even if the kids got a block?
There may be a landlord with a vacant lot that would sell the spots, and they do that, but the numbers are just overwhelming, you know? And, you know, I don't know if ELO will charge more to drive people out into the neighborhoods, but it's not driving people to parks or any walking.
Yeah, exactly. We did a little bit of research, the folks did a little bit of research on the car ownership and purchases. Clearly, there was a surge, used cars, new cars, and whatnot. It is the case that it doesn't matter how plain really mass transit is, people's perception is very different from the reality of the way. So, yeah, parents would say, yeah, take the car, and that is gonna happen. But yeah, to the same points that we're trying to make, I'd say, this may actually be an opportunity in a way that when it comes to the previous permit management, it is the case that everybody gets maybe similar, different programs, a lot of administration work, and it is just hard to manage. But maybe this is the time to look into, we can see what's out there, and then see if there are programs to Terry's point in a way that people are sensitive to the price. If you craft different programs for different groups and incentivize them in certain directions, and then discourage them from certain directions, there are opportunities. So the key is to create those different options. So people feel like you're trying to essentially create optionalities. Then it's everybody's decision if this works for them or not. But statistically, that is always the biggest lever you pull that from a pricing standpoint. People are going to make best decisions for themselves. That is just clear. Yeah. And to your point, Scott, and to Sam's point, maybe there's a partnership opportunity with the facilities nearby, with the private folks. That's demand for them. Who wouldn't want that? They would love it. Yeah. We're at 9? Oh, sorry, 2 minutes past. Okay. Thanks, everyone. This is amazing. Thank you all very much. Have a good evening.